The following video is a review of a rifle built by EM Precision Rifles in Leduc, Alberta. You'll see in the video I do a whole lot of talking, not a lot of mention of the people who built this. This is a great example of the craftsmanship and of work that goes into these things that EMP does. The quality of the components. And how they test out. You can find Steve and Shane at emprifles.ca or call Shane at 780-690-7513. Call Shane, not Steve. Shane's the business guy. Steve's the dirty hands guy in the shop. He's the guy responsible for getting all this stuff to fit together well. I hope you enjoy the video. Hey everybody, welcome to my reloading room. I'm in the man cave today to talk to you about EM Precision Rifles' newest 6XC build. Steve and Shane sent this to me a while ago to test and review, and that's what I'm going to do for you today. At the heart of this build is the Curtis Custom Actions. Shane and Steve at EM Precision are the exclusive Canadian dealers for Curtis Custom. This action is the Curtis Vector. It's a 3-lug design. It's really quick to cycle. It has integrated 20-minute rail on it and recoil lug machine right in. Nice thing about the integrated rail is that you don't have any screws to worry about coming loose or anything like that. The nice thing about the integrated recoil lug is that it's always in the same place. There's no worry about misalignment, or no risk, I guess, of misalignment when you go to rebarrel or anything like that. It's coated. They call it a DLC coating, which stands for diamond-like coating. It's a very hard coating, and it's great for wear resistance, and it's a little bit troublesome, I found, at least initially until you achieve wear in. It was kind of chattery when I was cycling that bolt. There's pretty tight tolerances on this action. There's not a lot of slot between the bolt body and the action. So those hard surfaces trying to slide past each other sort of disagree for the first while until things are worn in. So what I ended up doing with it was putting some synthetic grease on the bolt body, which is something I don't generally like to do, especially in the summer, because it collects dust like crazy, and I guess that maybe it'd help you wear in the bolt a little faster, but not desirable. 40 to 60 rounds, I think. Well, I tried to run it for the first dozen rounds or something, and that binding and chatter really got to me, so I greased it up a little. By about 60 rounds, it was nicely worn in, or at least made it up where the two surfaces were playing nice with each other. Took the grease off. Just didn't want any more dust in the action than absolutely necessary. And it's been good since. I guess I put a total of 70 rounds, I think it was, through this thing through load development and testing. Where was I? Quick change feature. We were talking about the recoil lug and misalignment with an action like a 700 Remington, where you have the loose recoil lug and you have to use a jig to align that lug when you're rebarreling. This one, there's no worry about that. And the quick change feature for this action, there's a set screw on each side of the action that you just loosen off, and you can spin that barrel out. There's no action wrench needed and no special vise for it, or a barrel vise. you might want to use a barrel vise, or at least just a normal vise with padded jaws or something like that, because to do it right, it should be torqued a little bit, but it's not completely necessary to have a whole bunch of torque like you would have on a conventional action, like any conventional action without the set screws to hold it in there. Attached, I guess, to this action, I guess one thing I wanted to get to first, I suppose, is the bolt stop. This is something I really liked on this action. A lot of these actions that have the side bolt stop, I don't know if you can see it right there, but it's vertically oriented. So every time that bolt comes back and slams up against that bolt stop, it's hitting the actual bolt stop instead of the ones that are horizontally oriented, like my surgeon over there. They're horizontal, so and you're relying on that pin to keep that bolt stop there. So every time you slam that bolt back into the stop, you run the potential, at least, of bending the retaining pin in that stop. I haven't had trouble with that yet, but there's always potential for that sort of thing. This being vertically oriented like this, there's no chance of bending that pin, because the pin is, where the heck is it? Oh, the pin is in the back. So there's no hammering on that pin. It's simply just the bolt stop. One small beef I had with this action is just the way that the bolt operates, if that makes any sense to you. It's a bit of a heavy bolt lift. Now, it's really not too much of a problem, but it is stiff enough that when you're cycling, it will rotate your rifle off target if you don't have a firm enough grip on it, or if you're on pretty unstable rest, a barricade, whatever. It's not that big a deal. I'm sure I could get around it with some practice. The other thing, I guess, that I ran into, I'm a finger flip guy. When I cycle in action, I like a nice short bolt handle. I know that's pretty unconventional. There's most guys run a longer bolt handle just to have that more positive movement. Myself, I like coming up like this, just a quick flip in and out, or out and in and down again. This one, the way you're almost forced to run it is grabbing that handle and making that long rotation up and back and in again and down. For me, and this may simply be a practice thing. I could probably change the way I do things just to accommodate this action. It's not a big deal. It's just a small beef with me. I feel like I break my position a little bit more if I'm grabbing that handle the way this one needs to operate, rather than that just quick flip. Not a big deal. I guess what else? The Trigger Tech diamond on this thing. Steve and Shane put Trigger Techs on, I believe, every rifle that they sell as a package. I'm sure it's not every single build that they do. So customers want something else, I'm sure, but they're a huge proponent of the Trigger Tech triggers, and I can't disagree whatsoever with that. They are very, very nice triggers. This one's a diamond with the flat shoe on it. I only have one diamond. I have several other Trigger Techs on other rifles. Not a lot to be said about it, honestly. They're very nice, very easily adjusted, crisp brakes on them. Probably the same thing you hear about every other trigger on the market, but these are really, really good. They've got that frictionless sear release, or whatever they call it, which makes it really nice. It breaks there's a nice positive wall on it just before it breaks. You can feel that. There's not a lot of there's really no take up, but you can feel that wall. And when it breaks, it's just right there with pretty much zero over travel. You want some, of course, but the other thing attached, I guess, to this action is the Spur scope mount. And again, what do you say about Spur? They're pretty much the best on the market. I've owned one myself. Really bulletproof, reliable mount. In that mount is the Bushnell DMR2 illuminated. Great scope for the money. It's not a, you know, some of the gear snobs might say, well, it's not a Schmidt or it's not a Nightforce or whatever, and it doesn't carry that price either. I have two older models, a first generation DMR, as well as the ERS, which is the generation before this. I'm quite happy with them. They'll do everything that the higher end scopes will do. It might not cut through Mirage and that quite as well as the better glass, but again, like I said, for the money, it's pretty damn good. Jumping now, I suppose, to the chassis, the MPA chassis. The BA competition is what this one is. Blue, obviously. I call it the blueberry. I don't know whether Shane likes that or not, but too bad. Really nice, ergonomically, really nice chassis. You can see here there's full cheek rest adjustment as well as length of pull. You got a nice little bubble level right here, which really helps, especially with those longer shots here. You get that rifle canted off one way or the other, and it will cause a mess if you're canted off far enough at a significant distance. What was interesting when I was shooting this rifle, I've shot my buddy Jens's MPA chassis before, and hadn't spent a lot of time with it. But this one, I obviously spent a fair bit of time with it. I'm how do I say it? Kind of a traditional pistol grip shooter, where I put my thumb around it, grab it like you mean it, sort of thing. This one here, I was really surprised at myself that this thumb shelf on this side, and you'll see in the video that I posted on our website how I'm shooting. I'm really skeptical of that. I've always been that you grab that goddamn rifle like you mean it and you hold it. This here, you know, the thumb on the side seems like a weak hold. This one, the way it's designed, is actually more comfortable with that thumb on the outside rather than wrapped around, and it was very controllable. I don't know whether it's the grip, the design of the grip, or just the whole thing. Fit really well. I'm somewhat a believer. I'm still a little bit skeptical. I guess I'm just an old guy. I like holding a rifle like they were meant to be held. Maybe this is changing things. I don't know. We'll see. Maybe I'll have to shoot Jens's MPA a little bit more. The mag release, really good. I did have a little bit of trouble. It's tight in that well, and I think same as the bolt on this thing. It took a little bit of took a few cycles to get it sort of worn in. And I don't know whether it's the anodizing on this that makes it a bit grabby or just what, but it's good now. Another feature of this rifle is the ARCA rail that's machined right in here. All sorts of accessories that you can put on with the ARCA stuff. At the front of it, we've got the Atlas bipod. Now, the bipod itself, I always have. The Area 419 mount that it has on it. It's got this ball mount, and for me, in recent years, I've switched to for lack of a better way to put it, I suppose, a free recoil style shooting, or shooting, because I found that when you're shooting off a hard objects like concrete or like a truck hood or something like that, steel barricades, things like that, you can't necessarily get that push to load on a bipod. This mount basically requires you to load it up. So I had a little bit of difficulty that way. Not much, because I shot off the ground through the entire testing regime that I went through. I did a little bit of barricade work, but not a great deal. But I mean, that's with the rifle perched on the barricade here, essentially. So the bipod really didn't come into play there. The spike feet on this bipod, great idea for softer surfaces, even wood. Ground, again, is great. But here again, if you're shooting off a concrete or hopefully not anybody's truck hood, at least not a hood that they care about, it'll dig in, I suppose, if you push on it hard enough. Smooth concrete and that, I don't like it. Then it forces you to go with a free recoil style of shooting. And like I said, with this mount, this ball mount, you almost have to load either that, or I just make adjustments to the way I shoot. Anyway, oh, I forgot to mention too, at the end of this barrel, I forgot to mention the whole barrel, as a matter of fact, before I moved on to the chassis. This is an IBI barrel, International Barrels. This is the first experience I have had with this barrel, this company's barrels. It's kind of interesting, actually. I cleaned it after 5 rounds. I cleaned it after 15 rounds. And then I cleaned it again after, well, just before I went into final load tuning. I was really surprised and a little bit skeptical. I use Wipeout Patch Out for the most part, and I'd swab it, let it sit for 15 or 20 minutes, and then run a couple of patches through again. Each time I did that, there was only a little bit of blue that came out with that first and second patch. After that, there was nothing. So I thought, well, this couldn't be. So I scrubbed the living hell out of it each time, looking for more, what I thought there should be more. Turns out that there wasn't more. So the first 2 times I cleaned it after 5 rounds and after 15 rounds, I didn't have a bore scope. I got one of those Tesla, or borrowed one, a Teslong scope from a buddy of mine, and we put it down the barrel. And the 3rd time I cleaned it, just before final development or final tuning for the load, I was really surprised at how well it cleaned up. Like I said, I left the solvent in the bore for 15 or 20 minutes each time, and run a couple of patches through to wipe that out, and there was very little copper indication that came out. We ran that bore scope down, and yeah, it just showed nothing. Very nice machining in it, very nice lapping. Steve did a, they say that the keys to accuracy is a good barrel and good straight machining, a good chamber. Steve did a hell of a job on this chamber, looking down it with the bore scope. It's yeah, you can tell that he knows what he's doing. At the end of the barrel is an Insight Arms heathen muzzle brake. Shane says there are competitors as far as muzzle brakes go, but who gives a shit? They're good brakes, so we put one on. It's hard to argue with that. Really, I guess that's about it. I probably missed something. Load development. Speaking of the barrel, I suppose. Load development was a bit challenging. The chamber design for this is the David Tubb original design, and it's designed for, I believe, the Peterson brass and the Norma brass. Now Peterson is what's being used in this rifle. There's a 6XC2 reamer design, and it's the heck is it? It's a little bit smaller at the head, and what is it, at the neck area? I think a little bit smaller in a couple of areas to accommodate for alpha brass. Alpha brass apparently is a little bit smaller. I don't know myself, but this is what Shane was telling me. So if you use the alpha brass, I think in the original Tubb design chamber, it would expand too much at the head. So just if you're building a 6XC, just watch out, or keep in mind those things. It's a little bit, I guess, unfortunate that there are two different or multiple different chamber designs for any one particular rifle. I mean, God, you look at 308 and how many different chamber designs there are for that. It's ridiculous. But anyway, so what we used in this rifle is Reloader 16 and the 110 grain Sierra Match King. Now, the reason why this chamber was designed, or the throat at least, was designed for the 115 grain D-Tacs. But they're hard to get at the best of times, from what I understand. I don't know. I haven't shot a 6mm for quite a long time, but this is what Shane tells me. I've heard this from other guys too. Shane elected to go with the 110 Match Kings. Their sponsored shooter has had really good luck with them. I believe he's shooting a 6 Creedmoor. So Shane decided to try him in this. They're far easier to get than the D-Tacs. So the 110 grain Match Kings are what I call them a modernized design. They use a Secant ogive, I believe, more like a VLD. So the nose profile is different from the traditional Sierra Match Kings. The traditional Sierra Match Kings would shoot at almost any length, jump or jam. This one here, being long throated for the 115s, to touch the lands in this chamber with those 110 Match Kings, the bullet needed to be seated out so far that there was only about 60% of the bullet shank grabbed by the neck. To me, I don't like this, especially in a rifle that this is going to be used for PRS and stuff like that. You drop ammunition or kick it around or drop a mag or something like that, and there's a good chance, if you don't have enough hold on that bullet, that you're gonna kick a bullet out off axis, whatever you want to say, induce run out in it. So the first thing I did with load development was search for a suitable seating depth that it liked with full neck engagement, or as close to it as I could get. What I ended up with was a 90 thou jump. It really liked that, and a 45 thou jump. But 45 thou jump, it's not much. There's 45 thou difference there between 45 and 90, right? But it's still less bullet in the neck when you're seated further out. So I elected to stay with the 90 thou jump, and then I did powder charge development from there. Ended up at exactly 2.800 overall length for a seating depth, which gave me that 90 thou jump. And a charge of 39.3 grains, I believe it was, of Reloader 16. Shoots really well, and I decided to leave it at that. Shane can mess around with it a little bit more to refine seating depth, maybe, if he wants to do it after that. But where is it? I got a target around here somewhere. Not that one, not that one. So you can see right down here and right up here is what I shot with that 90 thou jump. This one here is the higher node at 40.2 grains, and then the lower node was at 39.3. Ignore these other ones. I wasn't having a great day. I shot a couple of groups after that. These are just 3-round groups. I shot several 5-round groups just to confirm that charge and seating depth after this. And of course I don't know where that target is right now. Too bad. Anyway, I think that's it. If you guys have any questions, let us know. Write to us at firstfocalplane.ca. You can shoot an email to rooster@ffpp.ca, or comment on our next podcast. June 20th, 9:30 Saskatchewan time, PM. We're going to have Shane Getson on to talk about what's going on in Alberta for this whole firearms ban debacle garbage. Shane has passed motion through the legislature there, and he's part of the Firearms Advisory Committee in Alberta now. So it should be a good one to watch. And if you don't catch it live on YouTube and Facebook, you can always go to our website at ffpp.ca and look through the list of podcasts. Later.